Evening and welcome to 5 News with me, Sian Williams.
And me, Claudia Liza Vanderpoy. Our headlines tonight. The Prime Minister's told stop lying and come clean.
Boris Johnson, hello. What were you doing in May 2020 during that first COVID lockdown? Not much, if you think back, because we weren't allowed to do anything. We couldn't leave our homes without a reasonable excuse, and you could only meet one other person outdoors. Otherwise, you faced a fine. But it's understood 100 people were invited to a Downing Street drinks party, and around 30 attended, including Boris Johnson and his wife. Well, the PM wasn't in the Commons today to confirm that or respond to the Labour leader's plea to stop lying and come clean. But police are looking into it, and so too is the senior civil servant who's already investigating other gatherings. Until then, there is anger, grief and bewilderment from many, including one MP who cried as he spoke of his mother-in-law who followed the rules. Well, as we've been hearing, and perhaps unsurprisingly, there are some very strong feelings about these new revelations. Let's speak now to Peter Lane. He's in Bolton for us. And Peter, what are you hearing there?
Well, Sian, there are vivid...
That is what the good people of Bolton are saying. How about you, though, CL?
Yeah, we know it's a hot
We're looking at, but let's go back now to our political editor, Andy Bell. So people still living with restrictions, still living with the fear of COVID. But let's talk about then what all this means for the PM in the context of these parties. Coming back to Andy later on in the programme. It just seems groundbreaking, doesn't it?
Yeah, unreal.
More on that later. Now, remember this. It's been called the perfect antidote to the pandemic, or January blues. Have you any idea what it is? Here's a clue. If you're any good at it, you might end up with a nice hat. See you after the break. Welcome back. This is 5 News. This is our top story tonight. There's party allegations certainly caused a stir on the Jeremy Vine show earlier today, with many less than impressed with the recent revelations. For all those messages. We don't have a government minister to put your points to, and we know that Boris Johnson wasn't in the House of Commons either to respond to these criticisms. But if I could just ask my guests, he is turning up tomorrow, we think, for Prime Minister's questions. If you had a chance to put a question to him, what would you say? Can I ask the doctor first? Sian. Hello, I'm Sian Williams.
And I'm Claudia Liza Vanderpoy. You're watching 5 News. It is 5:32. Let's remind you of our main story tonight.
Actually lied over these Downing Street parties. The number of pupils off school in England for COVID-related reasons rose last week. 315,000 children missed class. That's the most this school year. At the same time, 44,000 staff were absent, more than 1 in 12 of the total. So how are schools coping? Toby Sadler visited Duncombe Primary School in North London to find out. OK, we're going to take a short break now. In a few moments, see you after the break.
Welcome back. Let's go back.
Novak Djokovic was back in more familiar territory today, holding a practice session on the courts where the Australian Open begins next week. There's still no decision from the immigration minister, who's threatened to cancel his visa for a second time. But as Julian Drucker now reports, there are new questions for the world number one to answer. And finally, for today's High Five, we're going to be spinning you a bit of a yarn because we're delving deep into the cosy and comforting world of knitting.
Well, the hobby has apparently been one of the hits of the pandemic.
And thanks to an unlikely Olympic endorsement by the diver Tom Daley, a growing number of men we sent Divya Kohli to get crafty. See you again tomorrow at 5.
Aidan's got the weather next. See you soon. Ta-ta.
Bye-bye.